When the transport shuttle Madrigal dropped out of slipspace near the dust-shrouded moon of Arthas, human engineer Corin Vale was already dreading the assignment. He'd been told he would be working with a warrior from a cooperative species. That was Fleet Command's diplomatic phrasing. In practical terms, it meant he would be dealing with someone massive, armored, probably battle-scarred, and almost certainly unimpressed with humans. And he wasn't wrong. Commander Citra of the Zirathai was unlike anything Corin had ever seen. Even without her armor, she stood nearly 7 feet tall, covered in crystalline scales that shimmered with faint luminous veins. Her crest, a crown of living mineral plating, glowed faintly in agitation. She looked like a statue sculpted from star metal. More than that, she had the posture of someone who had lived her entire life on the battlefield. Corin, in comparison, felt painfully ordinary as he greeted her on the hangar deck. "Commander Citra," he said, trying not to stare at the fractal patterns rippling along her skin. "I'm Corin Vale, chief engineer for this mission." Her gaze flicked toward him, not hostile but evaluating. "You are small," she said in a deep resonant tone. "But I am told human engineers are competent." Corin blinked. Thanks." Thus began their partnership. Awkward, terse, and defined by silence. Their mission was simple on paper. Explore a derelict Zirathai dreadnought drifting in Arethus's orbit and retrieve its data core before scavengers or rival factions reached it. But what the briefing glossed over was that the dreadnought had been Citra's former command. Everyone she had fought beside had died there. She had volunteered for the recovery rather than let anyone else touch the remains. That alone made Corin tread lightly. The derelict. The dreadnought was a spectral giant, over 3 kilometers long, its hull cracked open like a split geode, leaking faint streams of iridescent dust. As their shuttle docked with the outer airlock, Citra moved with the precision of a dancer, her heavy armor making barely a whisper. Corin followed in his exosuit, struggling to match her quiet confidence. Once inside, the halls were silent except for the faint hum of their suit systems. The ship's interior architecture was half organic, half metallic, grown structures fused with engineered conduits. Everything had an eerie, cathedral-like beauty. Corin watched Citra's posture stiffen with each corridor they passed. "You okay?" he finally asked. "Yes," she said, though her voice had thinned. "Memories here. They press like gravity." They eventually reached the central chamber where the data core floated within its containment cradle. To Corin's relief, the power systems were intact. Retrieving the core would be easy. But as he worked, Citra moved away, brushing her hand along a section of the wall where a pattern of glowing sigils flickered faintly. They were names, Corin realized, memorial inscriptions. Her people. He pretended not to notice the tremor in her breath. The battlefield ghosts. The trouble began during extraction. The cradle clamps refused to disengage, locked by a failsafe routine written in ancient Zirathai code. Corin cursed softly. "This thing is tied into the integrated security lattice. I'll need time." Citra approached. "Show me." He turned the console toward her. Her eyes narrowed as she scanned the glyphs. "This is combat encryption. My people designed this. But it is old. Older than me." Corin hesitated. "If you want to step out for a bit." "No," she said sharply, then softened. "This vessel deserves respect. I will stay." Together they worked, though Corin did most of the technical translation. Citra occasionally provided context to symbols or architecture, but mostly she stayed silent, watching. Eventually, with a final surge of power, the clamps disengaged. The ship, however, reacted violently. The lights pulsed. A protective subsystem deep within the dreadnought awakened, misinterpreting the core removal as a hostile act. Energy surged through the corridors. "Defense grid is rebooting," Corin shouted. Citra lunged forward, grabbing the core in a fluid movement. "Move!" They sprinted through the corridors as the ship fired pulses of crackling energy after them, automated turrets emerging from the walls. Citra's shield absorbed the brunt, but each impact dimmed her crest light. By the time they reached the shuttle, her armor was scorched and dented, and one of the mineral plates on her arm had shattered. But she never slowed. After the chaos, back aboard the Madrigal, Corin insisted Citra remove her armor so he could inspect the structural damage. She resisted at first. Apparently it was a personal, even intimate request among the Zirathai, but exhaustion finally overcame her pride. Piece by piece, the living metal plates detached, folding into the storage frame. Underneath, Citra's scales glowed faintly, but several were cracked, and she bore the unmistakable stiffness of someone in pain. Corin exhaled. "You took the hits for both of us. You are not hardened for war," she said simply. "And I could not let my crew's final resting place kill someone innocent." He didn't respond. Instead, he took one of the damaged plates and with careful hands began cleaning it. He used a gentle solvent, working the residue from the scorched edges, restoring the natural gleam. Citra watched him with unblinking intensity. "You clean armor?" she asked, her voice quieter than he'd ever heard it. "I'm an engineer," Corin said. "I take care of what protects people, including you." She lowered her head slightly. The crest's glow dimmed, then brightened in a slow pulse, a Zirathai sign of confusion or vulnerability. "Why?" she whispered. "Why treat me like I matter?" Corin paused, meeting her luminous eyes. "Because you do," he said. "You're not just a warrior. You're a person. And today you saved my life." Her jaw tightened. A tremor ran through her crystalline skin. "In battle, no one tended to me like this. Not even among my own kind." "Well," he said softly, "then they were missing out." Her breath hitched, a sound halfway between a hum and a sigh. The awakening. Over the next 2 days, Corin worked tirelessly on repairing Citra's armor. He polished fractured plates, resynthesized crystalline growths, and reinforced her shield generator. Citra sat nearby, watching him with an expression he couldn't decipher. Sometimes she asked questions about human engineering. Other times she simply listened to the soft click of tools and the hum of diagnostics, as though the sounds themselves were calming. By the time the armor was restored, its surface gleamed like starlit amethyst. Citra stood, donning each piece with ritualistic care. "You honor me," she said, her voice steady. "Not as a soldier, but as someone worth the effort. You are worth the effort. And if I told you that among the Zirathai, allowing another to tend one's armor signifies deep trust," she paused, "would you understand what I have given you?" Corin swallowed. "I think so." "Then know this," she said, stepping closer, towering yet no longer imposing. "You have treated me not as a weapon but as a being with a heart. Few have ever done so. The ending. And a beginning." When Fleet Command requested the data core, Citra surprised everyone by recommending that Corin be assigned as her permanent technical liaison. Her justification was simple. "He honors the fallen. And he honors the living." Corin felt his chest warm at her words. As the Madrigal prepared for its next jump, Citra approached him, placing one newly repaired gauntlet over his hand. "You saw me," she said softly. "Not as alien, not as warrior, but as someone who matters." You do, Corin replied. The ship's engines hummed as they entered slipspace, stars stretching into luminous arcs beyond the viewport. A new mission awaited, and whatever it was, Corin knew they would face it together, side by side. Human and Zerathai, engineer and warrior, two souls bound not by duty, but by the quiet, undeniable recognition of each other's worth.